What if everything we thought we knew about the universe's most fundamental forces, about the very nature of reality was, well, just scratching the surface? Imagine a single unifying source, not just a concept, but maybe a tangible active identity where all structure, all dynamics, all motion, and maybe even consciousness itself actually springs from. Okay, so let's dive deep into a theory that proposes something truly mind-bending. It suggests that the fundamental fabric of reality isn't just a passive stage for cosmic events, but an active, generative force. We're talking about the Unified Coherence Theory, or UCT, and its really bold core idea, the hypergravity identity.
Yeah, what truly stands out about this theory is its sheer ambition. It wants to resolve some of the deepest philosophical and physical divides that have, well, kind of plagued science for centuries. It's an incredibly comprehensive framework. And the documents we've looked at, they lay out its core tenets, its active functions, and even potential really concrete ways to observe and test its effects. Our goal here is definitely to present these details comprehensively so you really walk away with a solid understanding.
Right. Our mission today is to thoroughly explore these fascinating documents, pull out every important nugget of knowledge. We want to understand how the UCT radically redefines our understanding of space, time, matter, and maybe even the act of observation itself. So get ready for some serious aha moments, because this theory, it definitely challenges our most basic assumptions.
And you might naturally wonder, right, can a single irreducible identity genuinely be the source of all emerging complexity? It seems like a huge leap. We're going to systematically explore how the UCT posits this. We'll break down its foundational claims first. Then, and this is absolutely crucial, we'll move into how it suggests we might actually test this theory. The sources outline incredibly precise observational markers, really detailed across the material.
Okay, so let's start right at the conceptual heart of the UCT, the hypergravity identity itself. Our sources describe it not as some, silent, unchanging backdrop, but as the irreducible, invariant reference from which all structure and dynamics emerge.
That concept is absolutely foundational, and it holds this profound dual nature, as the source material puts it. It functions as both frame and fountainhead.
Yeah.
Now, this is central because it attempts to resolve a really long-standing fracture in physics, the traditional separation between a passive coordinate system, basically the stage of space and time where events happen, and the active forces that cause those events.
Right, we usually think of space as just trade.
Exactly.
Right.
Historically, we've largely viewed space and time as merely a container, right? And forces as separate things acting within it. The UCT fundamentally challenges that split. It asserts that the very framework is the source of activity, that the container itself is the originator of everything that fills it. It's a truly revolutionary shift in thinking.
Here, let's unpack that. Irreducible invariant reference.
Yeah.
It sounds like saying there's an ultimate unchanging bedrock to everything. It can't be broken down further. It's always been there, always will be. But here's the twist, right? It's not just sitting there passively. It's actively generating reality. It isn't just what exists, but critically what makes things happen, the source of motion and change.
And to elaborate on that a bit, the theory refers to the hypergravity identity as the ontological prime mover. Now, when we say ontological, we're talking about the fundamental nature of being, of reality itself. So the hypergravity identity isn't just a conceptual construct or some mathematical abstraction. The theory claims it's the fundamental existence. It's the ultimate first cause for everything that exists and everything that unfolds in the universe. Imagine looking for the absolute starting point, the ultimate why behind reality. The UCT suggests it's right here, in this identity.
So what this all really means? It's a complete flip of our traditional perspective, isn't it? Instead of an endless chain of events causing other events, maybe with no ultimate beginning to the causality, the UCT posits there's one single foundational cause, a constant source from which everything else springs forth. It applies a deep inherent causality built right into the very fabric of reality, like a foundational engine of existence. And this leads us to some profoundly deep philosophical underpinnings. The source material uses this incredibly powerful, almost poetic analogy to get the essence across. It says, the stillness is the source of motion, the unchanging is the progenitor of change. And it elaborates further. It is not a passive ocean upon which waves arise. It is the ocean whose stillness is the wave's origin. This metaphor is absolutely key to understanding the UCT. It suggests that what appears static, fundamental, and still is, in fact, the most dynamic origin point. It's not that motion happens in the universe. Rather, the universe's inherent stillness generates motion.
Yeah, this is where it gets really compelling for me. It's like saying the quietest, most foundational aspect of existence, this ultimate stillness, is actually the most dynamic force imaginable, the originator of absolutely everything. Think of an ocean, right? So calm it seems utterly motionless. Yet, its very essence, its stillness and depth, holds the inherent potential and is a direct condition for every single wave, every ripple, every powerful current that will ever emerge. The waves aren't external events just randomly appearing on the ocean. The ocean is the fundamental condition and the active origin for the wave's existence. It's a beautiful, almost elegant way to conceive of creation.
Precisely. And the source material highlights that by recognizing this dual role, the hypergravity identity as both the ultimate invariant reference and the active generative cause, we establish a foundation where, listen to this, mathematics, physics, and ontology converge into a seamless generative principle. This means that the abstract principles we use to describe the universe, the observable phenomena we measure, and the very nature of existence are all intrinsically linked. They derive from this single unifying source. It's a theory aiming for a profound simplicity that somehow yields the infinite richness and complexity we see in the universe. This isn't just another theory in physics, it's really the ultimate quest for a theory of everything, one that isn't just a collection of equations, but a deep understanding of reality itself. Unifying these disparate fields of inquiry that have long been treated as separate, often isolated domains of knowledge. It's proposing a single root for all branches of reality.
Okay, so if this hypergravity identity is truly this active generating force, how does it actually do that? Our sources lay out several critical functions that detail its direct, active involvement in the universe's structure and dynamics. This moves us from what hypergravity is to what it actually does in the cosmos. Let's delve into these core functions in detail because they reveal the intricate mechanisms through which this identity shapes reality.
Yes, exactly. The UCT doesn't just present the hypergravity identity as some philosophical concept. It describes concrete generative roles. It's proposed as the fundamental mechanism for how the universe comes to be and how it operates, not just an abstract idea floating out there.
Okay, first up, the hypergravity identity is described as the generator of symmetry. The theory states it sustains the universal coherence field from which all gauge symmetries arise naturally as tiered reductions. And critically, it says this happens without the necessity of pre-imposed compactified dimensions.
That is a truly significant claim, because, as you know, gauge symmetries underpin the fundamental forces we understand in physics, electromagnetism, the weak nuclear force, the strong nuclear force. In our current standard model, these symmetries are often sort of built in, sometimes requiring extra compactified or hidden dimensions to unify them, like you see in string theory.
Right, those tiny curled up dimensions we can't see.
Exactly. The UCT proposes maybe a far more elegant solution. A unified origin for these forces stemming directly and naturally from this more fundamental universal coherence field of the hypergravity identity. This entirely bypasses the need for additional unobservable dimensions, which is a major conceptual hurdle in those other unifying theories. So, for instance, the U1 gauge symmetry that's linked to electromagnetism and conserving electric charge. SU2 is tied to the weak force governing radioactive decay, and SU3 to the strong force, holding quarks together inside protons and neutrons. The UCT suggests all these fundamental laws of nature are simply reductions or emergent properties of the hypergravity identity's underlying coherence. They aren't fundamental principles themselves. The key insight here is that the universe isn't just obeying preset rules, it's actively generating them from its deepest foundation.
Okay, next function. The hypergravity identity is the driver of emergence. The sources detail a sequential emergence of particles and their properties from what they call coherence gradients. Specifically, it mentions bothonic fields first, then fermionic classes, integrating mass, charge, and spin into a unified generative sequence.
This hierarchical appearance, this order of different particle types, offers a really compelling potential explanation for why our universe has the specific particles it does. It suggests a deeper underlying order rather than just random formation or, fundamental principles that are just predefined. To understand coherence gradients, imagine the hypergravity identity as this perfectly still, uniform ocean of pure coherence. A coherence gradient would be like a subtle propagating wave, or maybe a disturbance in that stillness. The UCT posits that these gradients aren't just disturbances. They're the very blueprints from which particles spontaneously condense or form as the coherence shifts.
So like ripples turning into actual particles.
Sort of, yeah. Bosons, like photons or the Higgs boson, they're the force carriers or they mediate interactions. Fermions, like electrons and quarks, are the matter particles that make up everything. The UCT posits that this isn't arbitrary. There's a specific unified generative sequence driven by these coherence gradients propagating through the hypergravity identity's invariance. It's like a cosmic assembly line where fundamental properties such as mass, charge, and spin aren't just random values but emerge in a specific ordered way from this deep coherence. This provides a potential framework for understanding the standard model of particle physics not as a collection of fundamental irreducible elements, but as an elegant emergent phenomenon stemming from a single source.
Okay, now this next one. This is where the theory truly ventures into uncharted territory, touching upon one of the most mysterious aspects of existence. The UCT also positions a hypergravity identity as an observer coupler. This is unique, potentially revolutionary. It proposes integrating consciousness directly into physics. The theory explains how it provides the invariant anchor that allows observation to modulate coherence without violating physical law, integrating consciousness into physics through a definable meta-operator rather than mystical intervention.
This is a deeply profound claim. It really challenges our traditional understanding of the universe and, frankly, our place within it. It naturally leads us to ask, if observation plays a lawful fundamental role, how does that redefine our understanding of the observer effect in quantum mechanics? In standard quantum mechanics, the act of observation is known to influence the state of a system, famously collapsing wave functions. But the mechanism for this is often left ambiguous or interpreted in various, sometimes contradictory ways.
Yeah, it's always felt a bit hand-wavy.
Right. The UCT, however, implies a structured, non-arbitrary interaction. It perhaps hints at a deeper informational substrate where consciousness isn't some external separate force or an accidental byproduct, but an integral, lawful part of the universe's fabric connected through this meta-operator. To put it simply, maybe imagine a universal translation layer or an interface, almost like a specific quantifiable algorithm, through which conscious awareness can legitimately interact with and subtly modulate the universe's foundational coherence, the hypergravity identity, without breaking known physical laws. It's a bold assertion, absolutely. It's trying to bridge the gap between mind and matter not through mysticism or some philosophical leap, but through a new, definable physical principle. It suggests consciousness isn't just an epiphenomenon, but fundamentally woven into the universe's operational principles via hypergravity.
Wow, okay. And finally, the hypergravity identity acts as a vacuum structurer. The theory offers a radical reinterpretation of vacuum fluctuations from standard physics. Instead of random quantum jitter, they're described as purposeful coherence redistributions, exhibiting resonance patterns traceable to the hypergravity identity's invariant coherence spectrum.
What truly revolutionizes our understanding here is how the UCT provides a potential underlying order to what appears to be random quantum activity in the vacuum. In standard quantum field theory, the vacuum is far from empty, right? It's a seething sea of virtual particles constantly popping in and out of existence, a quantum foam. The UCT takes this a crucial step further. It suggests these aren't truly random, but rather purposeful coherence redistributions. This means they are organized, not chaotic, and their resonance patterns are directly traceable to the fundamental invariant coherence spectrum of the hypergravity identity. This eliminates the conceptual gap between what is the seemingly empty space and what happens, the dynamic creation and annihilation of virtual particles. It consistently applies that principle. The stillness is the source of motion, even at this most fundamental level. This means the vacuum, the seemingly empty backdrop of our universe, isn't just passive. It's an active, structured, and ordered medium directly reflecting the deeper reality of hypergravity, carrying its very fingerprint in its fluctuations.
So what this all boils down to is a profound re-envisioning of the empty space around us. The vacuum isn't empty or random at all. It's alive with purpose, filled with structured patterns that tell a story about hypergravity's fundamental coherence and its role as the source of all emergent phenomena. It implies that even the most seemingly chaotic aspects of reality, like the spontaneous birth and death of virtual particles, have a deep underlying order, an elegant design emanating from this ultimate stillness. Okay, this is where the rubber truly meets the road, isn't it? A grand unifying theory is one thing, but can we actually see its effects? Can we measure it, prove it, or maybe even disprove it? Our sources provide these calculated observational markers, essentially a detailed roadmap for how we might empirically validate this entire framework. And these markers are tied to specific threshold eigenvalues within what the UCT calls the coherence spectrum.
Yeah, putting this in a broader context, these markers represent concrete, experimental, and observational avenues for testing the UCT. It moves it from the realm of abstract philosophy to potentially verifiable science. The coherence spectrum is a key concept here. It's characterized by two fundamental parameters, a normalized variance and a coherence amplitude. The hypergravity identity itself is the theoretical baseline of maximal invariance, right? A normalized variance of 0.00 and a coherence amplitude of 1.00. Perfect coherence. The theory predicts that as variance increases and coherence amplitude decreases from this maximal state, basically, as the universe becomes less coherent and more structure-specific phenomena, particles, large-scale structures, they're all predicted to emerge at distinct threshold eigenvalues. The source material meticulously organizes these markers into three progressive tiers, moving from very high coherence down to lower coherence states, each representing different stages of cosmic evolution and physical manifestation. It's a really comprehensive approach to testability.
Okay, we're going to systematically explore each of these tiers. Let's start with Tier 1, pre-mass formation thresholds. These markers are associated with the very initial stages of the universe where coherence amplitude is still incredibly high. Fundamental symmetries are just beginning to emerge, even before the formation of mass as we currently understand it. This is about the genesis of the universe's foundational rules.
Exactly. This refers to phenomena from the earliest moments, focusing on the emergence of fundamental symmetries characterized by very high coherence and consequently very low variance from that hypergravity baseline.
First up in Tier 1, coherence gradients. The theory predicts a gradient onset at a specific threshold eigenvalue, lambda grad. This corresponds to a remarkably high coherence amplitude of 0.98. The note suggests that directional flows form at this incredibly early stage.
Which leads to a fascinating question. Could subtle patterns in the cosmic microwave background, CMB, the faint afterglow of the Big Bang, hold direct clues to these initial coherence gradients? The proposed observational markers are vacuum polarization anisotropy and primordial flow patterns in CMB polarization maps. Vacuum polarization is this effect where an electromagnetic field subtly distorts the vacuum, causing virtual particles to briefly appear and disappear. Anisotropy in this polarization, or in the CMB's overall patterns, would mean these distortions or primordial flows aren't uniform across space, not the same everywhere. This would strongly hint at underlying directional influences from these hypergravity-driven coherence gradients right at the universe's inception. Unlike random quantum fluctuations, the UCT suggests these are structured flows, leaving a specific, detectable fingerprint on the earliest light in the universe.
Okay, moving on. The UCT predicts the emergence of gauge symmetry, which one projection. This is projected to occur at lambda U1 with a coherence amplitude of 0.90. It signifies the birth of the dispersive EM sector.
What's truly intriguing here is how the theory suggests the U1 gauge symmetry describing electromagnetism and its conservation laws like charge conservation emerges at this precise coherence level. The suggested observational markers are fine structure constant stability and vacuum birefringence tests. The fine structure constant, alpha, is one of those incredibly fundamental numbers in physics dictating the strength of electromagnetic interaction. Its astonishing stability over cosmic time or any tiny theoretically predicted variations could be directly linked to this coherence threshold.
So its value isn't just a given, it's set by this.
That's the implication. And vacuum birefringence, that's the phenomenon where the vacuum acts like a crystal, causing light to split into different polarizations and travel at different speeds. This would be a direct signature of a structured vacuum, as predicted by the UCT, rather than a truly empty or random space. The key insight is that this stability, this behavior, isn't just an arbitrary fact, but a direct consequence of hypergravity's maintaining effect on the universe's coherence.
Right. Next, in the progression of gauge symmetry emergence, we encounter the SU2 tier. This is predicted to occur at lambda SU with a coherence amplitude of 0.85, which directly corresponds to the electroweak layer.
This marker specifically links to the electroweak force, which, as you know, unifies electromagnetism and the weak nuclear force. The proposed markers are WZ boson mass-energy ratios and parity violation scattering experiments. The W and Z bosons are the force carriers for the weak interaction, mediating things like radioactive decay. Their precise mass-energy ratios are fundamental predictions of the Standard Model's electroweak theory. Confirmations or any slight deviations from these ratios, especially if they trace back to specific coherence thresholds, as the UCT suggests, could offer crucial validation. And parity violation experiments, which probe differences in how particles behave when mirrored, are crucial tests of the weak force. It's the only force known to violate parity symmetry. The UCT suggests that precise results from particle colliders in these specific experimental setups could be direct fingerprints of hypergravity at this particular coherence amplitude. It provides a deeper explanation for why these forces operate as they do.
Okay. And finally, wrapping up the initial gauge symmetry emergence in Tier 1, we have the SU3. Predicted at lambda U2 with a coherence amplitude of 0.80, where the color domain becomes active.
This refers to the strong nuclear force described by the SU3 gauge symmetry. It governs interactions between quarks and gluons, basically holding atomic nuclei together. The observational markers here are lattice QCD confinement radius and jet fragmentation patterns. Lattice quantum chromodynamics, QCD, is a computational approach used to study the strong force, especially things that are hard to calculate analytically. The confinement radius relates to how quarks are perpetually stuck inside larger particles like protons and neutrons. They can't exist freely. The UCT suggests specific properties of this confinement might emerge directly from this coherence level, offering a novel explanation for why quarks are confined.
And the jet fragmentation.
Right. Jet fragmentation patterns, you see those in high-energy particle collisions, like at the LHC. They're the sprays of particles created when quarks and gluons materialize. The precise patterns of these jets, their energy distribution, their angular spread, could carry subtle but detectable signatures of the fundamental coherence from which the strong force arises. It provides a dynamic test of this theory.
Okay, so moving beyond the genesis of forces in the very early universe, we now enter Tier 2. Mass spectrum thresholds. Here, as the overall coherence amplitude of the universe decreases, the UCT theory predicts the formation and localization of particle masses. This feels like a crucial transition, moving from a universe of pure energy and symmetries to one filled with massive particles, the actual building blocks of matter.
Absolutely. As the universe evolves and its coherence amplitude drops from that pristine initial state, the UCT predicts the emergence of mass itself, and it outlines distinct stages for different particle types. This is a critical transition from purely energetic fields to particles that possess inertia, that can form stable structures. It's not just that particles get mass, but how and when within this evolving coherence landscape.
The first stage in Tier 2 is mass spectrum formation, lepton band, specified at lambda mass, coherence amplitude 0.72, where lepton mass is localized.
What's fascinating here is the precise level of coherence where leptons, like electrons and muons, are predicted to acquire their specific masses. The proposed observational markers are really interesting: mu electron G2 anomalies and lepton universality tests. The G2 anomaly refers to this persistent, significant discrepancy between the theoretically predicted and experimentally measured magnetic moment of the muon. This is a really hot topic in particle physics right now. It suggests something might be fundamentally off with our current standard model, or maybe there are new undiscovered particles or forces at play.
But this theory offers another explanation.
Exactly. The UCT offers a potential, deeply fundamental explanation. It ties these precise values and any anomalies not to new particles, but directly back to specific coherence thresholds driven by hypergravity. The key insight is that these anomalies could be a direct result of how the universe's fundamental coherence is structuring particle masses, rather than requiring hypothetical new physics. And lepton universality tests, those examine whether different leptons, electron, muon, tau, interact with fundamental forces in the same way as the standard model predicts. Any deviations there could also point to the UCT's proposed mechanism for mass emergence through these coherence shifts.
That's incredibly specific.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we have mass spectrum formation, quark band, and confinement. This happens at lambda mass coherence amplitude 0.68, marking the confinement onset.
Right. This refers to how quarks, the fundamental particles making up protons and neutrons, become confined and acquire their mass within larger particles, preventing them from being observed freely. The markers include hadronization thresholds and quark-gluon plasma cooling curves. Hadronization is the process where quarks and gluons, after a high-energy collision, form observable composite particles called hadrons, protons, neutrons, etc. The thresholds for this process, the specific energy levels where it happens, could be directly influenced by hypergravity's changing coherence. Quark-gluon plasma is that state of matter that existed shortly after the Big Bang, where quarks and gluons were unconfined. Experiments that create and study this plasma, like at CERN, observe how it cools and hadronizes. The precise cooling curves and the transition temperatures could reveal patterns traceable to these hypergravity-driven coherence thresholds. It could provide crucial data to either confirm or challenge the UCT's predictions for mass formation and confinement.
And finally, for mass formation in this tier, the UCT identifies neutrino condensation, occurring at lambda Dukan coherence amplitude 0.66, described as coherence mass condensates.
Ugh. Neutrinos. Those incredibly elusive ghost particles that barely interact with anything, making them notoriously difficult to study. Yet, we know they have tiny, non-zero masses, which was a major discovery. The UCT suggests this neutrino condensation, the mechanism by which they acquire their mass, is also governed by a specific coherence level within the hypergravity identity. The proposed markers are neutrino mass-squared differences and the cosmological neutrino background spectrum. Neutrinos famously oscillate between different flavors, which implies they have different, though very small, masses. The precise mass-squared differences between these flavors are meticulously measured in experiments. The UCT would predict specific values or relationships for these differences based on this coherence threshold, offering a completely novel explanation for these fundamental properties. Furthermore, the cosmological neutrino background, a relic radiation from the early universe, holds information about the total mass of neutrinos. Its spectrum could also be a direct fingerprint of this hypergravity identity's influence on their condensation, providing a direct cosmological test.
Okay, so from the fundamental particles making up everything, we're now zooming out to the grandest scales of the universe. It's clear that hypergravity's influence, according to this theory, doesn't stop at the subatomic level. We're now entering Tier 3, structure geometry thresholds. This describes the emergence of large-scale cosmic structures and geometric properties as coherence continues to decrease towards its lowest observable levels. This is where the universe's large-scale architecture really takes shape.
Yeah, as the coherence amplitude drops further, the UCT predicts that the very fabric of space-time itself, along with the distribution of matter on cosmic scales, becomes structured. This tier is about the emergence of the vast cosmic web, the clusters of galaxies, and the overall curvature of the universe that we observe today. It's where the frame part of the frame and fountainhead becomes overtly apparent in the largest structures.
The first key marker in this final tier is curvature and structure, geometry structuring. Happens at lambda curve, coherence amplitude 0.52, leading to the formation of large-scale structure and curvature.
Zooming out for a moment, this is fundamentally about how galaxies clump together, forming vast filaments and voids, creating that cosmic web we observe today. The proposed observational markers are the galaxy correlation function and BAO scale shifts. The galaxy correlation function statistically describes how galaxies are clustered. It tells us how likely you are to find another galaxy at a certain distance from a given one. Baryon acoustic oscillations, BAO, those are crucial markers of this large-scale structure. Essentially fossilized sound waves from the early universe that imprinted a characteristic scale on how matter is distributed.
Like a standard ruler in the cosmos.
Exactly like a standard ruler. Their precise scale and any observed shifts from theoretical predictions, shifts that standard cosmological models might struggle to explain, could indicate the direct influence of hypergravity on space-time itself. Specifically on its curvature and the formation of these immense structures. It would act as a direct signature of this coherence threshold, showing hypergravity's hand in sculpting the universe's largest features.
And finally, we have multi-scale cascade, turbulent regime. Occurring at lambda turb, coherence amplitude 0 to umptum 0. This is specifically characterized by K53 PM delta signatures, which you note refer to power spectra common in turbulent systems.
What's truly remarkable here is the idea that even turbulence, which often seems like random chaos in many physical systems, might not be entirely so in the vastness of space. The UCT suggests it's actually a signature of this deeper coherence field, manifesting as a multi-scale cascade. The specified K53 law is a well-known characteristic of Kolmogorov turbulence, describing how energy cascades from large scales down to small scales. The UCT predicts that this type of turbulent behavior, specifically in the incredibly diffuse intergalactic medium, the gas between galaxies, might carry patterns directly traceable to this coherence threshold. The observational markers are intergalactic medium turbulence spectra and gravitational wave background fluctuations. Observing the statistical properties of turbulence in this diffuse gas using various astronomical techniques could reveal these specific power law signatures. Furthermore, subtle fluctuations in the gravitational wave background, that cosmic hum of spacetime, could also provide clues to these turbulent coherence redistributions. It would act as a deep and universal marker of hypergravity's pervasive influence, even on the seemingly chaotic aspects of the universe.
Wow. Okay. These observational markers, they're presented as first-pass ideas, but it's absolutely clear they range incredibly widely, from cosmological scale observations like CMB, BAO, the gravitational wave background, all the way down to particle scale measurements like collider data, G2 anomalies, lattice QCD calculations. It covers everything.
Yes, what's truly impressive here is the sheer breadth and the comprehensive nature of these proposed markers. It suggests the theory is genuinely aiming to be a unified framework. It impacts phenomena from the smallest quantum fluctuations, defining the very essence of particles and fundamental forces, all the way up to the largest cosmic structures that span the observable universe. This comprehensive scope, providing concrete, testable predictions across such a diverse range of physical scales, it's a testament to the ambitious and all-encompassing nature of the UCT. It really is attempting to connect everything. Hashtag tag outro.
So we've journeyed through a truly ambitious and interconnected framework today. From the ultimate stillness that the UCT posits gives rise to all motion, to the very structure of the vacuum, and even the lawful role of our own observation in shaping reality. The Unified Coherence Theory, with its core concept of the hypergravity identity, it paints a radical and deeply coherent picture of the universe.
Yeah. Zooming out to the bigger picture, the UCT isn't just another theory about physics. It's a fundamental reinterpretation of reality itself. It posits an active, generative source for everything we observe. It's a profound shift in perspective, where that guiding principle, the stillness, is the source of the wave's origin, permeates every single level of existence. The hypergravity identity, as this active, generative source, is proposed to shape and inform every aspect of reality. It establishes a seamless, intrinsic connection between what is and what happens, moving far beyond the traditional passive role of space-time we've long assumed.
So the next time you look up at the vastness of the stars, or maybe even just feel the solid ground beneath your feet, consider this. What if every single thing you perceive, from the smallest fleeting virtual particle to the largest sprawling galaxy, is merely a structured ripple emanating directly from an ultimate invariant stillness, this hypergravity identity? What profound implications does that hold for our place in this incredibly vast, coherent universe, and for the very nature of our existence within it?
And to build on that thought, if such a profound identity truly underlies all of reality, how might a deeper understanding of its mechanisms not only unlock new scientific frontiers, but also allow us to perhaps perceive or interact with the universe in ways we're only just beginning to imagine, possibly even leading to completely novel insights into the fundamental nature of consciousness itself?